A 9-0 victory for our client, a party in this case at the U.S. Supreme Court, the Colorado Republican Party, and their chairman, Dave Williams, who's been working alongside our team throughout the beginning and has done a great job, again, assisting our team throughout this and taking those phone calls throughout the process, all three levels of the Colorado state court system, and then ultimately to the U.S. Supreme Court. Dave, thanks for joining us today. Just first, your reaction to this kind of unanimous decision at a time when you don't see a lot of unanimous decisions when cases involve either Donald Trump or politics.
You know, I think this is great for the country.
Yeah.
The fact that all 9 justices, regardless of who appointed them, came to the same conclusion really speaks to how we as a society should not be interfering with the people's right to vote for the candidate of their choice. And that's reflected in the decision. I couldn't be happier for your work and the work of the team to make this a reality.
Dave, you know, you got, obviously, it was your state that was the one front and center on this, and it was your party that was the one harmed. And I think what people need to understand in our representation of you before the Supreme Court and even before the trial court and the Colorado Supreme Court, it was your party position of who the nominees would be on the ballot, and that your Secretary of State was basically telling you, as the party, you can't do it. You can't put on the person you wanted on that ballot. But this time it was Trump. Next time it would be somebody else. Right.
I've said this from the beginning. I even expressed this to you and the team that while we certainly agree that Donald Trump had a right to access this ballot, that this case was bigger than Donald Trump's interests. This had to do with the party's ability to nominate the candidate they thought best to represent them on the general election ballot. If they can do it to someone like Donald Trump, then they could certainly do it to other candidates in the future. And that was something that we wanted to avoid. And thank God that this ruling did just that.
I mean, Dave, it kind of came like at the last minute because you've got a lot of Super Tuesday voting going on in the state where we live in, where you are. I mean, that people, again, I think they were going to come out. A lot of people early voted too. And in most states, it was stayed anyways if you did early voting. The state that didn't do that, that'll be overridden now because it won't matter. But again, I think it'll give people a sign too that now they know 100% it's worth waiting in line. Their vote's going to be counted if they decide to vote for Donald Trump, and his name is going to be there on the ballot. It's not going to be tossed aside.
Right. I mean, that was a concern all along. Our Secretary of State, who sided with the petitioners and was helping them in their case, was more than willing not to count those votes. And there was a bit of a question on what exactly would happen if the Supreme Court didn't come back with a ruling that was favorable. Now that's all avoided. Everyone can vote for Donald Trump and support the presumptive nominee, and it's on to November. So I'm just happy that people have clarity on this, and more importantly, all the other challenges across the nation should be put to an end with this ruling, and that's just good for our democracy.
No, the case affects the entire nation. So there's 3 other cases we're actively involved in right now. We'll be filing motions to dismiss to get those resolved. But I want to follow up, Dave, on what you said. This is from the opinion. The result could well be that a single candidate would be declared ineligible in some states, but not others, based on the same conduct and perhaps even the same factual record. So what all 9 justices said was this was going to result in this chaotic approach. And you were seeing that chaos even in Colorado as it started.
Yeah, this was a concern that we all discussed from the very beginning, even when we intervened immediately at the district level, that if this is allowed to stand and it gets this far, you're going to see other states removing Donald Trump. And then if it is allowed to stand, then you're going to see the opposite party, my party, potentially look at removing Joe Biden from the ballot, which just isn't good policy. The people should be deciding these elections, not justices or judges in a courtroom.
Actually, Justice, it's interesting you said that because, Dave, the Justice Sotomayor in her concurrence said, this, let me read it because it's exactly what you just said. Allowing Colorado to do so would, we agree, create a chaotic state-by-state patchwork at odds with our nation's federalism principle. That is enough to resolve the case. And she goes on to say that by allowing this, you would have basically taken away the right to vote. So, again, let me just say a huge thank you for all of us and for the American people, for the Colorado GOP and for you for standing up right in the beginning of this when this thing started. We were the first petition filed with the Supreme Court of the United States to get this stopped because of your organization's involvement. Dave, thanks for being with us, and thanks for your hard work on this.
Well, thank you. Happy to have done it with you.
Let's go to Ann in Omaha, Nebraska on line 1. Ann, welcome to Sekulow. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call. So my question is, I read an article that was published in The Atlantic, but I'm reading it on Fox, that says the Democrats could vote against certifying Trump if he's elected, based on whether or not the Supreme Court was clear about whether he was eligible, that's the word, eligible to run for office, that they could decertify him if he was elected.
Yeah, so the answer to that is no. I mean, I did see, by the way, some tweets to that effect, too. Look, they're going to try to do anything they can to circumvent this. So that's why we got to be very vigilant here, folks. Anytime you win a Supreme Court case, thank you. Thank God. Thank you, our supporters. But you've got to be vigilant because they're going to try stuff. Now, decertification would be a very dangerous move. You're talking about election interference. What they've indicted people, for questioning the 2020 election. And now, in this situation, to decertify or not certify the candidate, Harry, would be unprecedented, really.
It would be, but I wouldn't put it past the Democrats to attempt to do so because the Democratic leadership is remarkably inconsistent with respect to legal principles. So they claim to support democracy. They claim that they are defending democracy by going after Donald Trump, but they are nonetheless willing to use the same tactics that they accuse the Republicans of if it achieves a particular political objective. So I think at the end of the day, we should be wary and we should be prepared that the Democrats who suffer from the Trump derangement syndrome will use any means possible to go after Donald Trump.
But let me quote Justice Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. They wrote a concurring opinion. They agree with the result. They wrote a concurring opinion. To allow Colorado to take a presidential candidate off the ballot under Section 3 would imperil the framers' vision of a federal government directly responsible to the people. That's what they said. So to the answer to that question is no, Congress can't do this. Folks, but we've got to fight because they're already putting their plan in place, Jordan. That's why we got to really fight here.
That's right. I mean, you hear all these different ways they're looking at it. I mean, there's other court cases going on. Like you said, the immunity case that we're working on right now, filing that brief again, which is, again, very difficult cases at the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, time and time again, we are seeing this in this term at the U.S. Supreme Court. And we're right in the middle of our life and liberty drive. In a resounding victory today at the U.S. Supreme Court with this unanimous ruling in our favor, stopping what was the left's attempt, as well as Republicans in Washington, D.C., who are members of the swamp, don't forget that, to ban President Trump from the ballot. This is one of the biggest Supreme Court victories in the ACLJ's history, and we represented, of course, Dave Williams at the Colorado GOP, in this case, winning a massive victory for the Constitution. But the legal work does not end. We've got 3 remaining cases to get this dismissed at. In addition, a new fight's been launched on the immunity issue. We've got to defend the Constitution. Again, we need your support. Go to aclj.org. Have your tax-deductible gifts doubled during our Life and Liberty Drive because, again, this is a wonderful victory. I don't even think we've seen the ramifications yet from the left and on the 9-0 victory. They're starting to react in like tweet form. This was big, but there are bigger cases even coming ahead. Support our work, aclj.org.